What's going on, guys? Ryan Pineda here. In today's video, I want to go for a walk down memory lane and show you every single house that I've bought and lived in. Now, I don't own these houses anymore, so it's going to be kind of weird filming in front of them, but I'm going to show you it anyway. But before we go to those houses, I want to show you the house that I grew up in, my childhood home. So behind me is my childhood home that I grew up in, and as you can see, it is a big, beautiful home. We had everything we needed. I was super privileged. All my friends and I would hang out here, had a basketball court, a pool, all that stuff. But unfortunately, my parents lost it in the recession. And them losing it has definitely influenced how I invest today. I never want to overextend myself because I saw what happened with losing this home. And they lost this home in about 2010, and that led me to buying my very first home in 2011. So let's go check that out. So this is the very first house I ever bought. It was back in 2011, and if you've ever read my book, Flip Your Future, or heard me talk about my story, you know that this was a bachelor pad. We ended up paying $165,000 for this house. I was an agent at the time, so I actually got the commission credit for it, so it came out to about $160 all in. So a few things about this house. Number one, it was a short sale. So the first 3 houses I ever bought and lived in were all short sales. And for those of you who are just getting started in real estate, understand that short sales are usually really good deals. We flipped a lot of short sales, and obviously I lived in a lot of short sales. So if you're ever talking to a homeowner who's underwater on their mortgage, it does not mean you can't make a deal. In fact, you're probably gonna get a better deal. The other thing about this home is that it's newer. It was built in 2001, so it didn't need a ton of repairs. I think when it was all said and done, we probably put about $20,000 into it, and we probably didn't even need to do that. We did other things like make this driveway bigger. We added that concrete. You can see we added it over there too. Another thing we tried to do was build a pool in the backyard. That never happened because we couldn't afford it, but one of the reasons we did buy this was because of the big backyard. I wanted to put a pool, a batting cage, make it kind of like my very first house that I grew up in with my parents. But as I said, we couldn't afford it, so it never actually happened, and I'm looking at it right now, and 10 years later, it's still dirt. Nothing ever happened. So another funny thing about this community is that the HOA does not allow you to park on the street. So that was part of the reason we built this bigger driveway, because we had to fit all the cars on here. But as I said, it was a bachelor pad, so a lot of times we couldn't because we'd have our friends staying over and all this stuff. And so we'd have them park in this cul-de-sac right here because why not? No one else is using it. We should be able to park here, but no, they don't let you. If you look here, the sign says no parking beyond this point. And we tried our luck many of times and kept parking here. They'd put this big sticker that annoyed the crap out of you to take off, but nothing ever happened until one day it did. Unfortunately for me, being the guy who owns the house, I parked my car there. Why? I don't know. And I got towed. No one else had to ever get towed at this house except for me because I couldn't park in my own driveway. But despite being towed and hating on the HOA, we had a lot of fun living here. It was a great bachelor pad. And I forgot to mention in the story that my cousin and I both JV'd on this house. I couldn't afford to buy it on my own. I didn't really want to take on the headache of having the mortgage all by myself. So him and I did it together. And we both ended up selling it 2 years later for $215,000. So we made some money, we had fun, and really the only reason we sold it is because I got engaged, so I kind of had to sell it and leave so Mindy and I could buy a place of our own. But it actually didn't matter because he ended up living with us at our next house that I'm about to show you. So this is the very first home Mindy and I bought together. It was back in 2014, and before we got it, we actually lived in a little apartment that we rented while we were looking for this deal. And what's cool is we found this house as a short sale right when we got into the apartment. But for those of you who don't know, short sales kind of take a while to process through, and it wasn't until March of 2014 that it finally got approved at $175,000. Now, as you can tell, this house is pretty new. It was built in 2006, so it did not need a lot of work at all. I want to say we probably spent about $5,000 to $6,000 on it, and by the time we sold it just 2 years later, we ended up getting $240,000 for it. And we really enjoyed living in this house. In fact, it's only like 2 minutes away from the house we just saw. So we really liked this neighborhood, and it was great. The only issue we had is there's not very much land. You see, with all of these newer stock homes, they try and build them as small as possible lot-wise so that they can fit as many houses as they can. And so even though it's nice having a newer home and all the other homes around you are nice and new, you sacrifice by not being able to have a pool, or in our case, having 3 dogs and not having room for them to run around in the backyard. So our next house, we really wanted to upgrade the land. That was gonna be the most important thing to us. But I'll tell you, even though that was important to us, the real reason that we sold this house was to fund my house flipping business. It was here that I had my couch flipping business going full force. It was here when we had maxed out the credit cards and we're trying to make something happen. And I did my first 10 to 15 house flips while we were here. And I knew we'd built up equity in this home, and if we sold it, we could make about $50,000, which I could then use to go buy more flips. And it wasn't easy getting Mindy to agree to sell this because she enjoyed the home. She didn't really want to move, but she was willing to make the sacrifice and trust that with that $50,000, we'd be able to build the business and that I would be able to find her another home after we sold this. So we ended up selling it and getting this next house. So this was the next house we bought, and this was actually our very first one that we bought as an older home. Up to this point, as you just saw, the other homes were newer, they didn't need a lot of work, and I just kind of liked those newer areas. But Mindy and I wanted a home with a pool and a bigger yard, and we wanted to customize it to our liking, and so the older home made a lot more sense, and by this point, I had flipped a lot more homes, so I was comfortable with doing a renovation. So I ended up buying this house as a short sale for about $200,000, which in today's prices was an absolute steal, but this was back in 2016. When I originally bought it, I thought we'd spend about $50,000 in renovations, but as we all know, when you're doing your primary residence, you end up spending a lot more than you think, and the renovation ended up being $80,000. But in the end, it didn't really matter because we were super happy living in this home, and after 2 years, I sold it for $350,000. And honestly, we love this home. I think my wife still loves it as her favorite home of all time. We weren't looking to leave it, we weren't looking to move, but the home I'm about to show you came up on the market, and it was such a good deal that we couldn't pass it up. So let's go check that out. All right, so this is probably the house you recognize the most. You've probably seen it in YouTube videos, TikToks, all that stuff. And if you missed it, we actually did a home tour, kind of like this Architectural Digest knockoff. I'll link to it below, but this is where I live today. And it's a house that we love. The reason we bought it was because it had a half acre that had nothing in it, so we were able to customize it, put the pool, put the basketball court and everything. And it's actually the first single story that I've ever bought and lived in, and I really love it. Now, as far as numbers go, I bought this about 2.5 years ago for almost $600,000. I also was a realtor back then, so I got a commission on it, so I ended up paying really like $570 when you factor that in. Now, I did spend a lot of money on the backyard and some different upgrades. All in all, it was about $150,000. So that puts me all into this home for about $730,000, and if I had to guess, it's probably worth around $850,000 today. But in today's market with no inventory and nothing else like it, it could probably push $900,000. But it's been an awesome home for us. We're super happy with it. But obviously, you guys know we got something even bigger coming up now. So there is only one drawback to the home. It's only 3 bedrooms. And when we first bought it, we didn't have any kids. Mindy was pregnant, we were expecting, but now we've kind of outgrown it having 2 kids. And that's really the only reason we're moving to the place I'm gonna show you right now. And that brings us back to the mountain. If you haven't watched my first YouTube video about how I bought this mountain, you need to watch it. We'll link to it down below. But this is a project I am super excited for. I'm still in shock that we even got the deal and that it's exactly what I want. We've got this perfect strip view of Vegas. It's almost nighttime. You guys can see just how beautiful it really is. We've got 2 acres of a freaking mountain. Like, I don't know who else is doing that type of thing or even how I got into this deal, but I'm still in shock. And the best part is, we get to build exactly what we want, all the way from the house itself to where the pool will be to, where the grass and everything will be. Like, I'm so excited for it. And the coolest part is my architect has a design already. Like, we're moving full force on this. So we're gonna go see him tomorrow and see kind of what he's cooking up. So hopefully we can stay on budget, but either way, I'm in love with this mountain. I'm in love with the process of what it's gonna be to get it to its final stage. So I've shared the story of all the houses that I bought and have lived in, and let me just tell you, it feels like yesterday that I was just buying that very first deal with my cousin Travis, and I was starting out as a realtor, not knowing anything about real estate, just trying to figure things out. And then I think about that second house that Mindy and I purchased together when we got married. That was where I was starting to couch flip. That was where we did our first real estate flip. So many awesome things happened in that house. And all of that led to the second house that Mindy and I bought together, where we did the big renovation. We got the bigger yard and the pool. And that was where my real estate career really took off. We started to flip at a really high level. And that allowed us to buy the house that we're at today, which has brought us a lot of great memories. It's where many of you have seen my channel for the very first time. And man, my growth and our family's growth has just happened so much in that house alone. And who knows what's gonna happen with this? If it's ready in 2 years, I have no idea where my life will be. But I do feel like it's moving so fast, and I'm excited to share the journey with you guys. And I want you to know, every view you guys give, every comment, every DM, I see them, and it gives me encouragement to keep creating content. So I want to thank you guys, the viewers. But anyways, if you like this video, do me a favor, hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed. Follow me on all the socials. Until next time, peace.